I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe. What is it, Tuesday?
One of us has to remember to turn on the close music. That would be me.
All right, we got to give Cap a chance to respond.
We got to bring it back.
Billy
hey,
challenging him on where the inflation came from.
Yeah.
Cap, your response.
Hey, I'm here. Yeah, Bill asked me. Okay, you can tell me if I'm wrong. And first of all, I don't know all the information. I've heard that isn't the tune of somewhere around $6.5 to $7 trillion was spent federally during 4 years of Joe Biden. And now, if that's true, here's my point. This is what I've always thought and was taught about inflation. If the government spends set amount of money, but it's spent on things that don't bring revenue back to the government, isn't that when we have to raise inflation? And isn't that what happens?
Some yes and some no. A lot of it has to do, inflation normally is an increase on the demand side of things, because once you have higher demand, prices necessarily increase, but there are some conditions on that as well, because if supply is constrained. The idea being, if these are the last two generators and it is a snowstorm coming, then you're going to see inflationary prices on those last two generators. So
yeah, exactly.
it works either way. And there is an argument based on all of the money that was pumped into the economy based on Biden providing inflationary pressure in some areas. But conversely, remember the number of people that wouldn't have been employed at that time or drawing a paycheck. And I'm hard-pressed to say the solution would have been for them not to be able to afford things. So I think there's kind of a horse apiece. The issue that I push back on with the idea that it's the Biden-created inflation is I can't understand how Joe Biden would create the same inflationary pressure around the world. And that's what we saw. I mean, England, Italy, Germany, Japan, South Korea all dealt with it. The other thing is if we blame Joe Biden for the incredible rise in inflation, we also then have to credit him with bringing it back down to roughly 3.5% by the time he handed it off to Trump. So if Biden was the creator of the inflation, well, based on where it was at the end, we have to also give him credit for decreasing it.
Cap, final word.
I'm curious. Well, how would it get decreased towards the end? How would that become decreased?
It's the rate of increase decreased. It didn't actually, inflation did not decrease. The rate of increase decreased.
Yeah, well, yeah, and when you look after the 4 years, what I said earlier, you got to add in what I said, which was my paycheck. I haven't had a raise. I got a weird situation with the construction, but I haven't had a raise since about 2019 or 20.
Yeah,
and that was right before. So now in 2026, in comparison, when you look at the ratio of the economy, I'm making less per hour.
That's exactly
right. So that's what I'm talking about. That's been happening to me for 40 years.
Oh, that's how it's intended, though.
Yeah, keeps going down.
Yeah,
it keeps going down.
That's how it's intended. Remember that every time people talk about how rising cost of labor does X, Y, or Z to the businesses, because the rising cost of labor they're complaining about are the wages and the raises that you're missing out on. So that's part of it as well, that when people complain about the rising cost of labor, understand that's you, me, Jeff, everybody else listening to the show, that they're complaining about the fact that we possibly could make more money.
In a 2024 study at the Sloan School of Management at MIT, federal spending was responsible for the 2022 spike in inflation. It wasn't entirely, but 41% of it was the result of federal spending, producer prices, the result of about 10% of it, yield curve 3%, money supply 2.9%. But according to MIT, increased federal spending helped the economy bounce back during the pandemic, but it also caused a surge in inflation. All right, we are going to give you the latest updates on Minnesota, changes happening there with Trump, Walz, all that coming up. Now is time for the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good Tuesday morning, 28 degrees and mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 47 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, Michael Doherty is running for AG in Colorado. He was on with Jeff and Billy last hour. His priority is to make Colorado safer and protect citizens.
Public safety so high that they will not bring their family to Denver. They won't bring their kids to a Nuggets game or a Rockies game. But they also noted that they're not actually sure who to believe when they hear about the crime numbers. And I think that speaks to the need to restore trust in government and to have leaders with integrity who are not hyperpartisan. And throughout my entire career, I've been fighting for justice and doing it with integrity. And when it comes to community safety, we can do a lot to improve the laws here in Colorado, but also to make sure those laws are being enforced equally and fairly. That's the kind of work I've done my entire career, and that's what I'm going to do as your next Attorney General.
Love it. He knows all about crime. He used to work night court in New York City and took the train after leaving the court. Now that's an experience.
Yeah.
And it's right. So, he could be the night court attorney, right? The AG here in Colorado. Love it.
Yes, sir. They were involved in a brawl that broke out of their convention during a seminar on the role of androids on Starfleet command vehicles. Don't you guys ever just get loaded and hire a stripper?
Captain Kirk would never have allowed androids on the bridge. Rules are rules.
I had to play that since
yes,
Billy's
you
a
had to.
Star Trek.
I was hoping that you'd do some sort of a night court reference there. And of course, John Larroquette. That's just,
I had
oh my
to,
God.
because I'm thinking of Jeff going, I don't know anything about that. And
Yeah.
Jeff, and you're just talking about
I know, I was a little kid when Night Court was on.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
like this. It was the show that the adults watched. that I wasn't
Right,
allowed.
First thing that popped
It's a
up
little
into me is,
weird,
is
too.
I'm thinking of Bull in the corner is the bailiff. That's the first thing that
Yes.
I thought of. Is like, was your bailiff a big
Yes.
bald dude? I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's so many things. Yeah.
Absolutely. You
Oh,
think
yeah.
about it, you're like, wow, that really happens. Yes, there are night courts.
Yeah.
And my best friend is an attorney, and he's told me plenty of stories. So, yes, it does exist. But that was a great interview you had with Doherty. I loved it. Loved it. Anything but Grizzy, please, or anyone. There's a shakeup. Here, let me go to this. Let's go to more government stuff. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston unveiling his citywide goals for 2026. One is continuing to bring people back downtown.
One will be looking at how we can convert commercial office space into apartments and residential units. We already have about almost 500 units in the pipeline of the Downtown Denver Authority to do that.
Oh, yeah. And then here's his plan for the homeless problem.
What it looks like is we get to a stage where the total number of folks who are entering or experiencing homelessness in Denver at one time is smaller than the number of available beds we have to move them into.
I know it sounds complex, but what he was saying is we need more beds than homeless people. Unbelievable. That is a great plan. What else we got here? Let's see. Gun violence, point of emphasis this year.
The goal here is to decrease gun-related homicides by 10% and reduce shootings in high-risk areas by 20%. Those high-risk areas have been part of our broader police network investigation efforts.
Okay. All right, there's a shakeup in the Trump administration's immigration enforcement operations in Minnesota. Border czar Tom Homan will now be the point person in Minnesota while top Border Patrol official Greg Bavino returns to his old position in California just days after the fatal shooting of 37-year-old Alex Preddy by a federal immigration agent. Preddy was obstructing agents from doing their job. 47 is heading to Iowa today. The White House says his speech in the city of Clive will focus on affordability and energy. It's the latest stop in DJT's tour to tout his economic accomplishments heading in to the midterms. Another government shutdown deadline is looming for Congress. Of course it is. Senate Democrats are working to speed up passage of 5 government funding bills in the hopes of avoiding a partial government shutdown at the end of the week. Senate Minority Leader Shmucky Schumer made the announcement Monday. However, the Democrats' plan will exclude funding for the Department of Homeland Security. All these fools do is shut down the government, delay, and they do insider trading, and they get rich. That's all they do. They're worthless. Gold prices are hitting a major milestone. For the first time ever, prices are above $5,100 an ounce. This comes as investors look to the asset as geopolitical uncertainties mount. Around 36 deaths are blamed on the monster winter storm that hit much of the country. Hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses, mostly in the south, are still without electricity after ice and freezing rain took their toll on power lines. The Super Bowl is just under 2 weeks away, but companies already unveiling their ads for the big game. On Monday, Budweiser released its 60-second Super Bowl commercial online, and it features a Clydesdale and a bald eagle as Leonard Skinner's Freebird plays in the background, and I'm all for that. All right, Avalanche Senators tomorrow. The Pistons are in town tonight to take on the Nuggets. Jokic still out. 26 in Westminster, 27 in Highlands Ranch, 28 in Denver. You're waking up with Jeff and Bill. It is Tuesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
A cool, quiet day along the Front Range. Temperatures today will be in the 40s under partly cloudy to cloudy skies. Lows tonight, low to mid-20s. Upper 40s and lower 50s for Wednesday. We'll have a few more clouds around tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, and Wednesday, and the mountains will see a few snow showers. Thursday and Friday will generally be partly cloudy with temperatures 40s and 50s Thursday. A little bit cooler into the 40s for Friday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Trump sending Tom Homan to Minneapolis to oversee immigration enforcement operations, and the border czar will report directly to the president on the ground. Homan will replace Border Control Commander Greg Bovino. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying Mr. Homan is someone who has been lauded for many, many decades for his experience working in law enforcement. I would remind everyone in this room that it was former President Barack Hussein Obama who awarded a medal to Mr. Homan. President Trump saying, I am sending Tom Homan to Minnesota tonight. He has not been involved in that area, but knows, like many of the people there, Tom is tough but fair and will report directly to me. Texas Representative Chip Roy saying President Trump is doing a good job sending Tom out there to calm everything down. Republicans rallying behind Homan. Some Republicans on Capitol Hill expressed relief after President Trump announced Monday that he would send border czar Tom Homan to handle immigration enforcement in Minnesota after Department of Homeland Security agents shot and killed a second U.S. citizen there. Senate Majority Leader Tom Thune called the move a positive development, while Senator Lindsey Graham also offered praise Monday on X, saying, we need a new set of eyes and someone with his experience to help turn around the problems of the moment and the future. Tom is the right man to find a way to de-escalate the situation. Walz reaching out to Trump, saying he's going to cooperate with the federal government. It looks like the Trump move to send Homan to Minneapolis may have given both sides a chance to recalibrate. Ed Morrissey remarking that Donald Trump announced that he and Governor Tim Walz had spoken in the morning by phone about calming the situation in Minneapolis. Trump called it a very good call in a post on Truth Social, claiming that Walz is now on a similar wavelength about enforcement of law and protection of order in Minnesota. This might be the first fruits of Trump's decision to bypass Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem by putting Tom Homan in charge. Governor Tim Walz called me with a request to work together with respect to Minnesota. It was a very good call, and we actually seemed to be on a similar wavelength. I told Governor Walz that I would have Tom Homan call him and that we are looking for any and all criminals that they have in their possession. The governor, very respectfully, understood, and I will be speaking to him in the near future. He was happy that Tom Homan was coming to Minnesota, and so am I. We have had such tremendous success in Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, New Orleans, Louisiana, and virtually every other place that we have touched. And even in Minnesota, crime is way down. But both Governor Walz and I want to make it better. Billy, interesting development since the shooting in the weekend. What's your take on it?
Yeah. I find it interesting based on the framing of the conversations from the Trump administration, talking to Walz and then the mayor of Minneapolis, because as recently as last week, they were crazy socialists that were trying to destroy the country and all the fraud and awful, and now we're working together. Just, it's a weird change in tone. Probably a smart one, but a weird change in tone. I thought that was different. I think the move of Homan is probably very, very smart. My reading of it has been that Homan was, I wouldn't say sidelined, but was no longer in the front row of the seats who were in the bus, that he was more middle back, that he wasn't necessarily involved in making a lot of the decisions or a lot of the enforcement. He was doing a lot of the media hits, but beyond that, I didn't see him, from what I was reading, necessarily involved in a lot of day-to-day operations. And I think after the absolute, this is my own personal opinion, the absolute public relations disaster of Bavino in the aftermath of the most recent shooting in Minneapolis, something had to be done. He could not stay, in my opinion, because his interview on Sunday on the news magazine shows was a dumpster fire. I mean, the one that's the takeaway for me is when he said, no, the real victims in this situation were the ICE agents. Huh? The what? There was the what? Again, you can't, I challenge you to watch that video, look at what happened, and say that the agents were the ones in that situation that were victimized. That is as bad as, and again, as the administration, and this is one of the things that Kristi Noem's going to have to deal with, is we have two incidents, and I think this most recent one is more egregious than the one involving Renee Good, where the first statements from the administration are completely and totally false. Absolutely false. The administration characterized Peretti as being aggressive, brandishing a firearm, and coming there to inflict as much damage as possible. We don't see that anywhere on the video, and that's part of the problem. So Bovino, in my mind, had to go because his Sunday morning interview was absolute horrible for a public relations standpoint, and the administration has got to deal with what's going on inside of Kristi Noem's office and the statements that they make after these type of situations, because they are repeatedly stepping on rakes. And it's an embarrassment for the Trump administration. And I think that's why Trump is going around Noem's office to make this move right now. But that's my opinion. Yours.
Negotiations taking place because it's all being exposed. Signalgate. Follow it on X. This is important that these weren't just random protesters showing up in the streets. This was a coordinated insurgency effort funded by countries outside of America, by the way, in order to challenge President Trump's leadership, to weaken America. And a lot of this is being exposed right now. And all Trump asked all along was to just be able to coordinate in an effort to get criminals out of the city and state. And you're watching those moves now start to happen. Both Mayor Fry as well as Governor Walz have run out of options. The phone calls now to the president. Let's tone it down. Yes, we can make some personnel changes, that type of thing. But I think more importantly than that, more important than a Sunday show interview or any personnel changes happening within ICE, you're going to see policy changes coming from Walz and Fry. He got them to change some, not all, but some of their sanctuary city policies of just refusing to work, of forcing ICE to go out there and hunt these guys down without any type of local protection, to deal with these insurrectionists that are throwing ice blocks and driving their cars in the way. All of that you may start to see change as Minneapolis police provide some cover and some coordination around criminals that are incarcerated and wanting to have them deported. These are major policy changes. It's necessary, but it's also tied to the exposing of what's been going on with the donors and the coordination against ICE. This was not all accidental. These weren't just people showing up. This was a coordinated effort to try to interrupt. That's being exposed. They've run out of options, and now they're trying to negotiate. All right, join the conversation. What do you think of these changes? Tom Homan going in to relieve the Border Patrol czar. And is it a good change? Are we going to see policy changes? Was this a reflection of Trump finally having to back down from what he was doing? How do you read what's going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Folks, let's talk Gyrie's. My wife and I have been talking about updating our home for a while. We took a big first step by going to Gyrie's. Guys, it's so simple. Just go to Gyrie's with your wife. Visit one of the Denver locations. They're all over the Denver metro area. We went to the one in Parker, and we got to sit down with a professional designer who showed us an incredible selection of Hunter Douglas custom blinds, shades, and shutters. I was a little overwhelmed at first. I've never worked with a design pro, but she walked us through everything and helped us find the perfect options to enhance the look and functionality of our home. So whether your curtains are clashing or you just want a fresh look, Gyrie's has the solutions for you. Their designers are the experts, and they can help you with everything from window treatments to full room decor. Here's the best part. They offer a personalized in-home consultation. They'll come to you, so you can get the same expert advice right in your own home. Do yourself a favor. Get started today. Visit Gyrie's.com to schedule your in-home consultation. That's GUIRYS.com, GUIRYS.com. Go see the great people at Gyrie's. You'll be sure to thank me. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Changes coming to the ICE operations in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Trump sending Tom Homan to oversee immigration enforcement operations. Walz reaching out to Trump, looking to cooperate with the federal government. Look, I know this is, there's political posturing on both sides of this. Republicans going, look, Tim Walz finally acquiescing, willing to reach out. Others going, look, now Trump's backing down and admitting he made mistakes here. Do you appreciate a reasonableness coming from both sides, with both men going, all right, let's try to lower the temperature here? Do you appreciate that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should have been done a long time ago, but both sides are playing to base rather than playing to reality. And it is, some of the stuff that came out of Minnesota was as silly as our Denver mayor, Mike Johnston, saying he's going to meet federal forces at the county line with an army of moms linking arms and singing some sort of a song. I'm certain that Woody Guthrie wrote it or something. But so it's just as silly. They were very intractable, but I think the Trump administration was as intractable as well. It was we're the federal authority, you're going to do what we want or else. And we saw the Trump administration try to extract that types of revenge out of a variety of states that weren't cooperating with them, as far as cutting off funding and programs that many times wasn't even connected to what the issue was. So there's a horse apiece on both, but it's just Tuesday.
Simmer down now. Simmer down. All right, let's go to the phone lines, but first, let's talk about our friends Modern Rugged Leather. From city streets to mountain trails, this gear should go everywhere life takes you. That's why at Modern Rugged Leather, every bag is handcrafted from premium, responsibly sourced leather, designed to look sharp, last long, and tell a story of its own. Guys, I got mine. Oh, mine's over there. My bag is beautiful. I love it. It is the best leather bag I've ever had. Each stitch, buckle, and strap reflects timeless craftsmanship and is backed by lifetime warranty. Oh, look, there's Billy with it. John Corbliss, you got to turn it over to the camera here real quick. There it is. It is my favorite leather bag. So whether it's the boardroom or the back room, you're doing a very Vanna White. You're doing a very good Vanna White there, Mr. Thorpe. Whether it's the boardroom or the back roads, Modern Rugged Leather helps you carry confidence every step of the way. Modern Rugged Leather, modern style, timeless durability, backed for life. Look, life's going to take you places. Make sure your gear keeps up. Shop the full collection and find yours today at modernrugged.com. Again, that's modernrugged.com. All right, let's go to Joe in Arvada. Good morning, Joe. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Billy, when I heard this said, it just inflamed my heart. I lived with a police officer, my dad, for quite a while. Let's get something straight. The left uses these terms like victim constantly. And what they do is they try to pull at your heartstrings. This guy was no victim. He was part of the perpetrators. You can't just assume that this guy, he's a victim. No, he was not a victim. When Ashley Babbitt came through that window in the J6, quote, insurrection, did anybody say Ashley Babbitt was a victim? Only
a lot of people
conservatives.
Did.
Only conservatives. And I did. But here's the thing. What did the media say? She was the perpetrator. Now this guy.
But Joe, I understand you disagree. Joe, I understand. I understand you disagree with the characterization, but let's.
Here we go again.
What do you mean?
Here we go again. I mean, come on, Billy.
What? I understand you disagree with the characterization, but continue.
Well, the point is that this guy came with not one magazine, but two. He came here for a reason. Why did he bring a loaded gun with not one magazine, two? because he was part of the perpetrating force defending the invaders of our country.
Now who's
That's
making
what
assumptions?
he was defending.
Now who in the conversation is making assumptions here,
okay,
Joe?
well, let's find out who turns out to be right.
Yeah.
I turned out to be right with the woman. What was her name? Good. She was a paid agitator.
I've seen
coming
no.
to use her car as a weapon.
No, I've seen none of that proven, Joe. I know you've made that assertion, but I've seen no
just
proof
what
of
you
payment.
see.
No,
you don't look hard, Clouseau.
I haven't found proof of payment. Anybody that has that, feel free to text it to us.
This is the left's permanent viewpoint, Billy.
I know, just ignore that.
I get
It's
it.
okay.
You have to defend the left's
No,
view.
you just have to ignore exactly what I said. There's no proof of payment. You just go on. Keep going.
Oh, no, there is proof that these organizations were paid. There's just not proof that she received the cash.
Okay.
Billy.
So you're making an assumption you can't
Cash.
prove. Fair enough. Continue. Keep making assumptions you can't prove.
Well,
Joe. I'll let you get done.
I'll tell you what. All these communist organizations are funded, but nobody writes a check to the communists. Oh, here, why don't you just trace our bank account? Come on, Billy.
Yeah, but you're free to make the absolute conclusion without any proof. Okay.
Well, she
Keep
was
going.
a member of their organizations. Keep going.
Keep going. You have no proof where this is what we're doing. Keep going. You have lots of new proof. No
Wait
proof.
a second.
Keep going.
We're finding the proof that Governor Walz and Fry are part of the what is the network that they use?
I don't know. Go ahead and just make something up. Why not?
Well, no, they use the I want to say not telephone, but they're using an app. Signal
app.
network.
Yeah.
And let me just say this. When it's proven, yes, Governor, you and Fry should be frog marched into a federal penitentiary. You should be.
Okay. Well, we'll do that, Joe, and I appreciate the phone call after you show that the ICE watch was not voluntary and Renee Good was not volunteering with them. As soon as anybody provides proof of payment, then maybe we have something here. But there's been no proof of payment. That's okay, Joe.
What do you do with what was exposed on Signal, that these ICE protesters are actually a highly coordinated, essentially, insurrection?
Why do you use the word insurrection? Tell me.
To directly interfere with government operations. So they're not, like, for instance, they're not protests.
But is that an insurrection?
Yeah, what would you define?
An insurrection would be
as?
something in order to overturn the government per se. Objecting to some sort of a government enforcement, to me, doesn't rise to the point of insurrection.
They're not just objecting. They're not sitting there on the streets going.
Yeah, but they're protesting.
Insurrection is a violent uprising by a group established against an established government or authority, often acting as a prelude or a form of rebellion. It involves organized resistance to laws.
Yeah, but again, you rolled into violence, and I don't see the violence necessarily
to
contained
disrupt order. So what these guys have been able to expose on X is that what's happening in Minnesota was not even a coordinated protest, right? Like, think March for Life would be a coordinated protest. We're all going to fly in and we're going to walk around. But that they were tracking law enforcement license plates. They were seeking to directly interfere with lawful operations taking place by the federal government. I mean, imagine if the federal government was trying to stop cartels, for instance, and you had an organized effort to notify cartels of where the DEA is, track DEA license plates, and then you organize volunteers and people to either drive cars or put themselves in harm's way to disrupt those operations. That would clearly be illegal. And then tie it to elected officials in those communities.
And imagine
that's a big deal.
Imagine there was a government operation to go around and arrest people that didn't have a long criminal history and hadn't committed any crimes, and because that's the problem is when you use the example.
Committed any
hang
crimes.
on a sec. Hold on. When you use the example of going around and you use the example of the cartels, but that's not the enforcement mechanism that we see here. We are not arresting the worst of the worst as far as the drug dealers. Over 70% of the people that have been arrested and detained by ICE have no criminal history outside of crossing the border. And we have enforced the border crossing not as a criminal offense, but as a civil offense for decades. Again, if crossing the border makes them equivalent to a cartel member, I think that's a bad analogy, and that's the problem, and that's why you see the protests.
You're missing the analogy. The
I'm not
analogy
missing the
is
analogy. You're saying that they're all
interfering with
horrible.
federal lawful. So is the arresting of somebody here illegally a lawful federal action?
Yeah, depending on the circumstances and situation, yeah. But the idea that if someone had been granted asylum as an asylum hearing, that may not necessarily, because they've already been granted asylum, and yanking it from them then, there's some questions about processes and procedures. And
okay,
we
so
can even,
that would be unlawful.
Hang on, but what I'm looking at is you are describing these protesters as if they are defending these violent criminals. The issue being that they are unhappy with who is being targeted inside of it, which seems like a fair protest. I think they've gone too far in some areas, and I agree with them in other areas. But that's it, is that the protest is existing based on how the enforcement mechanism is happening.
Tracking the license plates of federal law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
And then sending cars to impede their operations is a protest?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah.
You don't see that as a crime. You don't see that as problematic. You don't see that as
again, based on what you described to me, no. I would have to see if there are any other extenuating circumstances that would be contained inside of the incident that may change things. But in and of itself, no. I don't see that. And the problem that I see...
You don't see that as a crime?
No, I don't.
Like if you got word that Aurora PD was going to go do something, you then got the license plate numbers of the cars from Aurora PD, and you went and stuck your car before them and stopped them, you wouldn't see that as a crime.
Again, I put my car in front of them. What's behind them? What's in the other lane? How am I stopping them? And this is what I'm using for. I'm using the example of Renee Good in Minneapolis. There was still a pathway around her vehicle at the time. It's not the direct pathway in that lane per se, but there is a pathway. So that's what I'm looking at, is it is contextual. If we have 4 cars that are there blocking the entire road, yeah, I think we've now crossed into the idea and level of criminality. Beforehand, I'm not certain that I would go so far as to criminality, because we have to prosecute for that. We have to make sure the DA could prosecute and get a conviction on that. I don't think that is worth the time or the effort. As far as prosecution, I don't look at that as a major crime that needs to be worried about. I don't know if even legally it would fall in definition, because again, I'm not a lawyer.
Bill, that is the exact reason why you have the problems in Minneapolis, because that type of activity was just allowed to fester. And Mayor Fry didn't address it. Governor Walz didn't address it. They were actively interfering in a coordinated way with federal government operations because they believed an injustice had taken place. They weren't protesting on the streets. They were tracking law enforcement. They were harassing them. They were interfering. They were driving their cars in between them. And because of that type of mentality, well, I'm not sure it's worth the time of the DA to prosecute this, it was allowed to fester and became a problem, and 2 people lost their lives as a result of it.
Again, look at the festering side of it on the other side. Right now, we have people, and we got videos of them. I saw one yesterday of someone that was filming ICE operations. They took down the license plate number, turned over, and it says, "Congratulations, you are now on a domestic terrorism watch list," for someone that is just filming ICE. So that seems egregious and unreasonable, and yet we're saying that somehow the citizenry is the one that are on the wrong side. I challenge anyone in the Peretti conflict. Where's the riot? It was described by the administration as a riot happening. There were less than 20 people at that location. Where's the riot? Where is the major impediment to what they are doing other than yelling and blowing whistles? That's a major impediment that is stopping the law enforcement capabilities? Disagree. That's the issue, is that we've decided that the law enforcement has to have some sort of impunity. We've decided that ICE has a larger budget than most other law enforcements in the entire country, larger than the FBI, and we put them in tactical gear, gave them military weapons, covered their faces, and go, you guys just deal with it. You don't think? And the other part with the signal chat, it's very interesting. And again, we'll have to see how far it goes and people in charge, yes, coordinating with them. But there probably could point into our history of other sorts of protests in which there were communications between various groups to organize protests and demonstrations. Wouldn't mean they're illegal. Also wouldn't make them insurrectionists.
Nobody cares about coordinating protests. These are domestic terrorists that were coordinating via signal.
Yeah, and a lot of people would say that during the civil rights protests that they were domestic terrorists as well. That they were pushing towards an insurrection because they were trying to upend the apple cart of the society and what was allowed at that time. A lot of
and you believe that what ICE is doing is on par with what racists did in Jim Crow.
What I'm saying is that when we say, oh my gosh, these people who are involved in the protests are communicating and some of them are in positions of power, that is fairly similar to what happened with communications of protest during the civil rights movement.
An organization on Signal. What they care about is the direct interference with lawful operations that pushed those people way past just being protesters into what I consider domestic terrorism. All right, let's continue. Give us a call and join the conversation. We want to hear from you. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. 720-819-5115. Let's talk Black Eyed Pea of Colorado. Love this restaurant. Locally owned and run by Stephen Michelle. That's important to me. Locally owned and operated. My whole family loves this restaurant. All three generations. My parents, my kids. Yours will love it as well. They now have 9 locations. So there's sure to be one near you. They recently opened one in Fort Collins. By the way, the pictures are beautiful. Follow Black Eyed Pea on Instagram. That restaurant is awesome. 807 East Harmony Road. This is the restaurant you want to take the whole family to and keep it in Colorado. These are the people I proudly support, and you can too. Take everyone out to eat at the Black Eyed Pea. Home-style cooking, worth going out for. They make everything from scratch, ranch-style pork chops, mushroom Swiss chicken, ribeye steak, St. Louis ribs, and the mile-high meatloaf. They've got daily specials and senior discounts. The Black Eyed Pea has what your family is hungry for. The Black Eyed Pea does catering as well. Your dinner party, rehearsal dinner, wedding reception, or company event will be a success when you look to the Black Eyed Pea. Hear me on this. I love everything about this restaurant. Visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. BlackEyedPeaColorado.com. BlackEyedPeaColorado.com. All right, Mary, you'll be up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking changes coming to Minneapolis. Trump sending Tom Homan to Minneapolis to oversee immigration enforcement operations. Walz reaching out to Trump, willing to cooperate with the federal government. Is it good all this is tempering down? Would you like to see prosecutions from either side? ICE being prosecuted, these agitators being prosecuted. Let's go to the phone lines. Mary in Wyoming. Good morning, Mary. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Bill, you and I have been texting for the last 2 days on this issue. And you asked me a question. And you said, could those against the civil rights movement make the same claims about the organizing and more of the protests then? And my response to you was, good question, Bill, and my answer would be yes. And why is because the difference is the motive. And Jeff, you're going to have to help me. And I guess this is a good time for me to announce I have Alzheimer's. I have had early Alzheimer's, so I struggle with my language now and numbers. So I find it hard to find the words that I want.
I'm sorry.
So
Mary.
That happens. But what I'm trying to say is the civil rights movement was moral. It was about our constitutional rights and wanting to be involved in our country, not the violent. And we were peaceful. We were not chaos and violence. And I think that is the difference. This group does not have the moral high ground. They are violating our laws, and they are violent and destructive. So I do not see, how do I say? Yes, they were similar in, what do you want to call it?
Yeah, just like organization communication kind of a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and in fact, they copied. I believe they copied, but they did the bad things about it. So when you had the last night when Levine read those emails from the Fox Digital, that is it. And then you put in all the other things that we know. You only go about your comment back to me on the Texas was that, well, it was just a part of it. But Bill, I mean, we have been saying all along that this is an organized to subvert our Constitution. And
see, Mary, I think people. The thing is, I think people on the other side that are protesting the ICE enforcement see it as well as an effort to subvert the Constitution in some ways, because you have masked men dressed in tactical gear and military paraphernalia, demanding people on the street prove that they're citizens. We've had reports from police chiefs around the country of their off-duty officers that are minorities being stopped by ICE officers and having to prove that they're citizens. So I think there's a little bit on both sides, and I do think that you're right about some of the violence on the left currently with this protest. I've been at least encouraged that it hasn't been as violent as I expected it to get. But inside the civil rights movement, there were some violent branches in that protest as well, the Weathermen being one of them. And so, again, they're more left than they are anything else.
Excuse me, that was for socialism. That was.
Oh, yeah, they're socialist. That's what I'm saying. They're much more left, yeah.
Excuse me, that does not get associated with the civil rights movement. The Weathermen were not for us. And
that's
I
fair.
know that.
But I'm saying more on the idea of, yeah.
I know because I was the chapter president of the youth group. So it was the senior group that called all the shots. They told us where we would go for our sit-ins and our rests, etc. So I see that, but as what we're seeing with this group now, there is a hierarchy. That's the China guy and Soros who are setting the agenda and the action plan.
But in other words, something I would have to see, and that's not proven necessarily by the signal chat, just like the funding as well.
And that's what's so wrong. What does it take? In other words, are they going to come out and what did you expect them to be able to do? I mean, I really would like your analysis that you're always talking about. You need proof.
Well, the thing for me is this, is that I hear for many years, I've heard George Soros used as this omniscient boogeyman that is responsible for anything that the left is doing. And there are a couple of things. One, I don't see the left as being that well organized that they would have one sort of like intellectual monarch or provider that would give them all the marching orders. Two, I don't think he has that much time in his day in order to manipulate everything that he's given credit for manipulating. And I also think that it's played many times as, well, since we don't know if, we can assume then this. And I feel without any proof, people have over and over again assumed that somehow George Soros is a big money bag behind these protests. Yet we have zero proof, but it is accepted as gospel truth in some areas of the MAGAverse. That's why I push back on it. If you're going to claim it, you got to show me that it happens.
And you are so naive. They have done such a daggum good job of hiding it.
Yeah.
That's what really ticks me off.
Mary, I'm with you. By the way, Mary, text messages pouring in, people praying for you.
Yes.
And I want to tell you how much they all love you.
Yeah. So many text messages, Mary. You are loved.
Yeah, you are loved. We appreciate that.
You're the best,
all right,
Mary.
Billy
Have a
and
great day.
I will continue the debate after the break here. I'm going to read some reporting from Andy No. He got inside those signal chats as well, used by far-left extremists in Minnesota. And here's what he saw. We'll give you all the details and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS. We'll be right back.